Welcome, friends. This is A Course in Miracles Palm Beach Study Group. We're on Chapter 13, Section 5, From Perception to Knowledge. In the book, it's in the text on page 258. All healing is released from the past. That is why the Holy Spirit is the only teacher, the only healer. He teaches that the past does not exist, a fact which belongs to the sphere of knowledge and which therefore no one in the world can know. It would indeed be impossible to be in the world with this knowledge. For the mind that knows this unequivocally knows also it deals in eternity and utilizes no perception at all. It therefore does not consider where it is, because the concept where does not mean anything to it. It knows that it is everywhere, just as it has everything and forever. All healing is released from the past. So the healing is the healing from the ego. When you move from ego to spirit, then you are healed. When you move from ego to spirit, you move from past into eternity. And Holy Spirit is the only healer because Holy Spirit is the only one that can take us from ego into spirit. He teaches that the past does not exist, which is another way of saying that the ego does not exist. A fact which belongs to the sphere of knowledge, which is the spirit world. And therefore, no one in the world can know, no one in the ego can know. If you're in the ego, if you're in the world, you can't know the eternity of spirit because you're in ego. It would be impossible to be in the ego with this knowledge. If you had the knowledge of eternity in your mind, you wouldn't be in the ego. It's either one way or the other. You can't have one foot in one and the other foot in the other. So when it says it therefore does not consider where it is, you could have said you or I, or Christ. Christ does not consider where Christ is. You do not consider where you are when you're in the spirit, because the concept of where does not mean anything to it, to spirit. That, I guess that would be the best word. Spirit, therefore, does not consider where it is, because the concept where does not mean anything to spirit. Spirit knows that it is everywhere, just as spirit knows that it has everything and forever. Any questions, comments? Paragraph 2. The very real difference between perception and knowledge becomes quite apparent if you consider this. There is nothing partial about knowledge. Every aspect is whole, and therefore no aspect is separate. You are an aspect of knowledge, being in the mind of God who knows you. All knowledge must be yours, for in you is all knowledge. Perception at its loftiest is never complete. Even the perception of the Holy Spirit, as perfect as perception can be, is without meaning in heaven. Perception can reach everywhere under his guidance, for the vision of Christ beholds everything in light. Yet no perception, however holy, will last forever. So we've heard this many times that perception is ego, knowledge is spirit. Number 3, perfect perception then has many elements in common with knowledge, making transfer to it possible. Yet the last step must be taken by God, because the last step in your redemption, which seems to be in the future, was accomplished by God in your creation. The separation has not interrupted it. Creation cannot be interrupted. The separation is merely a faulty formulation of reality with no effect at all. The miracle, without a function in heaven, is needful here. Aspects of reality can still be seen, and they will replace aspects of unreality. Aspects of reality can be seen in everything and everywhere, yet only God can gather them together by crowning them as one with the final gift of eternity. So basically that's just saying as you move from ego into spirit, you're getting glimpses and traces of the reality, and you can go just so far, but at the very last step, God takes you by the hand, so to speak, and brings you into heaven, so to speak, and then you realize that all of the ego was a dream, that the separation never really happened. You never were separated. You just thought that you were, and that was a faulty perception to think that you're separated from God. Any questions, comments?
I have a question. I'm not sure if I can formulate it correctly. So when we are here on Earth, we already have um, everything we need. Well, let me see. Here I go. I'm not off on a good start. There is no separation. So when we're living on Earth, we're still spiritual. We're still part of spirit because we're part of God.
Correct.
So in order for, so two things I wanted to say. So when we leave, and God takes us by the hand and we go back, that brings me joy. And when we're here on earth, we mourn that happening. You know, we're sad, the humans that are left behind. the spirits that the spirit people, the people. So where it should be a celebration, a joyous occasion, because we go back to where we go back.
Yes. You're talking about physical death.
Yes, but I didn't, but it doesn't say that here. It says
That's right, because they're not talking about physical death here.
right. Right. Oh, okay. So
They're talking about reaching enlightenment. They're talking about fully transitioning from the ego cycle of birth and death over and over again to reaching enlightenment, to turn nirvana, to
gotcha.
breaking out of the cycle of birth and death.
Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And I read in one of my reincarnation books where it said that everybody who dies is happy.
Yes, it's me.
Yes, it is you, Ed. Welcome back.
Thank you.
We're on page 258, and we just finished paragraph 3. And I am muting you, but of course, you can unmute if you need to. So, paragraph 4. Apart from the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit has no function. He is not separate from either, being in the mind of both, and knowing that mind is one. He is a thought of God, and God has given him to you because he has no thoughts he does not share. His message speaks of timelessness and time, and that is why Christ's vision looks on everything with love. Yet even Christ's vision is not his reality. The golden aspects of reality that spring to light under his loving gaze are partial glimpses of the heaven that lies beyond them. So that's giving us a little bit more information about the Holy Spirit. We've been told before that the Holy Spirit is the voice for God. And now we're saying we're being told that the Holy function's purpose, its function is to bridge that gap between our mind and God's mind. It says, sentence 2, he is not separate from either, being in the mind of both, but knowing that there's only one mind. So Holy Spirit can see the whole picture from Spirit's point of view, and yet realize that our mind is split between ego mind and spirit mind. And he's there to bridge that gap so that we're not separate and we're not lost eternally. Holy Spirit always keeps the connection between us and the Father. Any questions, comments? Paragraph 5. This is the miracle of creation, that it is one forever. Every miracle you offer to the Son of God is but the true perception of one aspect of the whole. Though every aspect is the whole, you cannot know this until you see that every aspect is the same, perceived in the same light, and therefore one. Everyone seen without the past thus brings you nearer to the end of time by bringing healed and healing sight into the darkness and enabling the world to see. For light must come into the darkened world to make Christ's vision possible even here. Help him to give his gift of light to all who think they wander in the darkness, and let him gather them into his quiet sight that makes them one. So the miracle is love and forgiveness. And the miracle of creation is that there's only one of us forever, for all eternity. And every miracle you offer to the Son of God, in other words, every thought of love and forgiveness that you offer to a fellow human being, is but the true perception of one aspect, that's an individual, of the whole. So I am an aspect of the whole, you are aspects of the whole. Each of us is an aspect of the whole. And then sentence 3 says, though every aspect is the whole, you cannot know this until you see that every aspect is the same. In other words, that you see yourself as a spiritual being and everybody else as a spiritual being, that you see the oneness of us all. And in doing that, then we're perceiving the same light in everyone. And when we do this, everyone seen without the past, without the ego, brings us nearer to the end of time, brings us nearer to the miracle, the final miracle, the transition out of ego into spirit, the enlightenment. So light comes into this darkened world one ray at a time, so to speak, as each one of us turn from the ego darkness to the spiritual light. And we see that in ourselves, and we see that light in ourselves, and we see that light in everyone else. And we acknowledge that we are spiritual beings and that everyone is a spiritual being, that we're all one with each other and one with our Father. Then that turns the darkness into eternal light. And that's the end goal. Questions, comments? Paragraph 6. They are all the same, all beautiful and equal in their holiness. and he will offer them unto his Father as they were offered unto him. There is one miracle, and there is one reality, and every miracle you do contains them all, as every aspect of reality you see blends quietly into the one reality of God. The only miracle that ever was is God's most holy Son, created in the one reality that is his Father. Christ's vision is his gift to you. His being is his Father's gift to him. They are all the same. We are all the same. We are all beautiful and equal in our holiness. And he, that's Holy Spirit, offers us to the Father as we were offered to Holy Spirit. There's only one miracle. There's only one reality. And that one miracle is us, God's most holy Son. His being is his Father's gift to him. Number 7, be you content with healing, for Christ's gift you can bestow, and your Father's gift you cannot lose. Offer Christ's gift to everyone and everywhere, for miracles offered the Son of God through the Holy Spirit attune you to reality. The Holy Spirit knows your part in the redemption and who are seeking you and where to find them. Knowledge is far beyond your individual concern. You who are part of it and all of it need only realize that it is of the Father, not of you. Your role in the redemption leads you to it by reestablishing its oneness in your mind. So basically, that's saying that the people that you are destined or supposed to bring the light to will automatically come to you. It's your job to just offer everybody who comes to you light, love, forgiveness, the realization that they're spiritual beings. And by doing that, you're being a part of the solution instead of being a part of the problem. So your role in the redemption, which is to see everybody as one in the light of God, in the light of Spirit, in the light of Christ, leads us to reestablishing the oneness in our own mind. So that it's a reciprocal thing. As we see everyone as being in oneness with us and with God, then we're enhancing, reestablishing that oneness with God in our own minds. That's how it works. Another way to say that is, you can't think that you're one with God, that you're a spiritual being, unless you believe that everybody is one with God and everybody is a spiritual being, without exception. It's all or nothing. Any questions, comments?
it seems it's hard to do when you're out in the world and you see behavior and you have to you have to see you have to see past it, but you're looking for the goodness in people, and you don't always have the opportunity to just see it. I guess because you're not with them all the time or something. I don't know. It's difficult.
Yeah, nobody's saying it's easy, but you don't have to see them being good to project the light to them. In other words, the way it works is, here's this person that you're observing with your physical eyes and ears, and that person is doing horrible things or saying horrible things or whatever that person is doing, very negative things. And you have to look beyond that and be able to say and think and feel inside yourself that I see all these horrible negative things that you're doing, but I know that you are a child of God, even though you don't know that. And I will perceive you, I will see you as a spiritual being, despite the fact of your negative behavior, because I know that that's the truth. The truth is that you are a spiritual being, and I'm going to acknowledge that, and I'm going to see that and look past, beyond all of your negative ego stuff, because you wouldn't be doing any of that if you realized you were a spiritual being. And because you are acting all that negative ego stuff, it's just obvious that you don't know what you truly are. Because if you knew that you were a spiritual being, if you knew that you were the Son of God, you wouldn't act like that. You'd act with love. So it's our job to see the person as the spirit, as the child of God, regardless of how they're acting out in the ego world. And by doing that, we're reinforcing our own perception of ourselves. Because everyone that we can see as a child of God, as a spiritual being, even though they're acting out negatively in the ego world, reinforces the knowledge and the belief that I am a child of God. Does that make sense?
Very much so. It makes me question when I see all the political stuff and I see behavior and I see this war stuff, is that why are we brought into this world?
We're brought into this world to testify for a spirit. That's why.
I also wonder if it goes like, if we acknowledge within ourselves first that we're a spiritual being, sometimes that might be a little easier to push it out onto others. So I think the difficulty is acknowledging the good in our own self. For me, I'm speaking for myself, and acknowledging that I am a good person. I do have light. I can share it, and I will. That commitment.
Yes, thank
Thank
you.
you, Ellen. That was good.
Anytime.
It works hand in hand. It works both ways. Yes, it's difficult to see other people as spiritual beings if you can't accept yourself as a spiritual being. So
Okay.
the other day, I was in meditation and I had all these people lined up. There had to be 10 or 12 of them. And I'm sending them all love. Every single one of them. I was shocked because there had been a time in my life when I could never do that. I was very content about that.
Yeah, well, that's good. That shows you're making progress.
Getting there.
Yeah, it's baby steps, step by step. So let's continue. Back to that last sentence of paragraph 7. Your role in the redemption leads you to it by reestablishing its oneness in your mind. When you have seen your brothers as yourself, you will be released to knowledge, having learned to free yourself through him who knows of freedom. Unite with me under the holy banner of his teaching. And as we grow in strength, the power of God's Son will move in us, and we will leave no one untouched and no one left alone. And suddenly, time will be over, and we will all unite in the eternity of God the Father. The holy light you saw outside yourself in every miracle you offered to your brothers will be returned to you. And knowing that the light is in you, your creations will be there with you as you are in your Father.
It's just so beautiful.
It is, and it's a promise. So when you see your brothers as yourself, as spiritual beings, then you'll be released to the knowledge, to spirit. And then you will have learned that you can free yourself through him who knows freedom. That's the Holy Spirit. Unite with me. This is Jesus speaking. Unite with me under the holy banner of Holy Spirit's teaching. And as we grow in strength in the power of God's Son and the power of the Christ, will move in us collectively. And we will leave no one untouched because there's only one of us. And no one will be left alone because there's only one of us. And then suddenly time will be over. In other words, that's when the ego world ends. When we wake up from the dream, time will be over. And we'll all unite in the eternity of God the Father. We'll all unite in heaven, in spirit. So the holy light that you saw outside yourself when you acknowledged the other person as being a child of God, that was the miracle that you offered to your brothers. And that will be returned to you. Knowing that the light is in you, your creations, which our creations are everything that we do out of love, will be there with us as we are with our Father. So the Father created us out of love, and what we create out of love is our creation. So it just gets multiplied. remember earlier in the lessons, it said that to create love, you have to share love, that whatever you share will be multiplied. Questions, comments? Number 9. As miracles in this world join you to your brothers, so do your creations establish your fatherhood in heaven. You are the witness to the fatherhood of God, and he has given you the power to create the witness to yours, which is as his. Deny a brother here, and you deny the witnesses to your fatherhood in heaven. The miracle that God created is perfect, as are the miracles that you establish in his name. They need no healing, nor do you when you accept them. So this is just talking about the next step about our creations. The Father created us, but we also create because we are like the Father. So we have the power of creation also, and we create through love. And so what we create through love then becomes our children. So to try to follow this progression here that it's talking about. And our last paragraph, 10, yet in this world your perfection is unwitnessed. God knows it, but you do not. And so you do not share his witness to it. Nor do you witness unto him, for reality is witnessed to as one. God waits your witness to his Son and to himself. The miracles you do on earth are lifted up to heaven and to him. They witness to what you do not know, and as they reach the gates of heaven, God will open them. For never would he leave his own beloved Son outside of them and beyond himself. All right, there's a bit of metaphor in here, the gates of heaven and all, but basically what that's saying is that, you don't really realize your creations of love while you're still operating in the ego world, because you don't have the true vision of spirit until you've transitioned fully out of the ego world. But God does see the creations that we create with love, and God is like holding them in heaven for us. And so going back to paragraph 8, that last sentence 5, it says, and knowing that the light is in you, your creations will be there with you as you are in your Father. After we've gone through the atonement, after we've transitioned fully out of the ego world. So it sounds a bit convoluted and all, but basically that's what it's saying. That, just have faith and trust that whatever good you do, whatever love you extend, you are creating out of that. And even though you don't see it while you're in the ego world, that doesn't mean that it's not true, that it's not happening. And the time will come when you do see it, because the Father is saving all of that for us in heaven. He's opened up the gates of heaven to let our loving creations in. And eventually we'll wake up from the dream, and then we'll be able to realize what we've created out of our love. Questions, comments?
I got the impression that this last paragraph also alluded to the fact that there is no person better than another person. Like, even if you have a gazillion dollars here on earth, I mean, I know that's ego, but it just seems like this last paragraph is talking to me about we're all equal. We're all equal, particularly in God's eyes.
Well, that is absolutely true. And another way of saying that is to say, there's only one of us. How can I be more equal from anyone else when everyone else is me?
Good.
Yes. There's only one Son of God, and that's all of us in the oneness. So, yes, we are all equal. Remember, we only perceive ourselves to be individuals because we're looking through ego eyes, and ego wants to separate and divide. And that's unreal.
For some reason, in that last paragraph, I was just reminded of that thought.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that last sentence says, "For never would he," that's God the Father, "leave his own beloved Son outside them," them being the creations of us. But it's not sons, it's singular. His own beloved Son. There's only one of us. Any other comments, questions? Because we've reached the end of our reading for today. So if there's anything else, now is the time. We're all good?
Yep.
Well, thank you, friends, for joining me this evening. Let's have a moment of silence, and then we'll stop the recording.